Love is the answer to your prayer. In fact, love is what answers your prayer. Whatever you're praying for, whatever you're trying to manifest, whatever you're trying to change, you have to bring it into a space of love. You have to love the situation. You have to pray that prayer as love. I know that this seems a little bit challenging. It doesn't seem to make sense because chances are what you're praying for is something that you don't like, something you don't approve of, something that you consider to be wrong, a person that you consider to be unfair, a situation that you consider to be unfair, or something that really disturbs you or bothers you. And you say, how can I love this? If I loved it, I wouldn't be praying for it. Okay, let me try to explain using an example from my own life. It was actually the first time that I understood this principle. It was wisdom that was given to me through prayer. I was praying about a situation that at the time was very devastating to me. And I just couldn't accept the injustice of something that had occurred with a particular organization. And they had made a decision that I thought was utterly unfair. And the repercussions of that, I thought at the time, were going to ruin my life. And I was very, very angry and very, very hurt. And in very sincere moments of prayer, I got the instruction that if I love the situation, it will fix itself. I'll be honest, it took me about 5 or 6 years to realize what that meant. Let me share that journey with you as quickly as possible, and you will understand what I mean when I say that love is the force that fixes everything. If you've been following my videos, I recently did one that's called Love is the Greatest Force in the Universe, and I explained that love is God. Right? We can accept this concept. This is a concept in the Bible. God is love. But really, really think about what that means. It means that life, the thing that created life and all that it created is love. I am made of love and you are made of love. And we can exist in 2 ways. We can exist as the individual who is merely physical, who is separated from everything else, and who's trying to influence something outside of themselves. That is the human way of existing. Or we can take our problem to God. And what does that mean, to take your problem to God? Does it mean you put it in your backpack and you hike to this place called God and you say, God, here, I give you my problem? No. So what does it mean to take it to God? What is or where is or how is God? This thing that you have to take your problem to. Whenever I try to fathom God, I always go back to that very simple short quote from the Bible that says, God is love. To me, that helps me to understand everything. So, okay, so God is love. That also means love is God. Okay, so there's a realm, there's a consciousness, there's an aspect of life called God, the creator of all things, the recreator of all things, the grantor of all things, the seer of all things, knower of all things. And that realm is love. Okay, so let's go back to this situation that happened to me, and it took me 6 years to figure it out. What I progressively had to do over the course of 6 years is I had to shift my consciousness from the consciousness of the individual to the consciousness of the divine, of the creator, of God. I had to slowly recognize, first of all, that everything exists for a reason. Everything has its purpose. It may seem like a bit of an extreme metaphor, but I was in the kitchen one day cutting up vegetables, and I was really appreciative of my knife. And it occurred to me, it's just a knife. What is done with the knife can be good or bad. People can do many things with a knife, but a knife is simply an object that exists in the world. And when you shift your consciousness to the divine consciousness, you realize that the world has many things in it. It has volcanoes and it has earthquakes. It has this and it has that. It has economies, it has governments, it has all kinds of things that some people will call amazing and some people will call wicked. It has immature people and mature people. It has children. It has wise old folk. The world has everything in it, and everything has a right to belong, and everything has a reason for existing. So first on my journey, I had to accept that what occurred to me exists. It is not vile, it simply exists. So that took me a couple of years. But I also had to realize that life doesn't happen to you as though you're some sort of victim. Life, when you shift your consciousness to a greater consciousness and you can view the world from a divine perspective, you realize, whatever you want to call it, the play of karma, if you will. You encounter what you need to encounter. And I don't mean that in a bad way, in a punishing way of like, you deserve that. No, I mean, if I touch fire and I get burnt, it is because I have not yet learned or understood the concept that fire is hot. Someone who has already touched fire and gotten burnt does not need to learn that lesson. Therefore, there will never occur a situation in their life where fire shows up and they touch it by unknowingly and they're like, oh my, fire burns, who knew? That situation does not need to present itself in someone's life who has already learned that. If I haven't learned that, then that situation will most likely occur at some point in my development because it is a necessary gap in my understanding. So the second thing that I had to learn, first I had to accept that everything exists and it is all part of the play and it is there. What are you going to do? Life created it. It is there. The second thing I had to understand is that life was not happening to me as some form of punishment. Life was happening for me for a purpose. And it was always either to teach me something, to make me aware of something, to help me to process something. Sometimes we enter situations based on past pain. Sometimes we enter situations based on anger, often from past pain. And the situation will help you to remove the pain if you can observe the situation. And instead of losing yourself in it, like a mere human being, which is, on the two ends of the spectrum, there's a human consciousness. Oh no, why has this befallen me? If you can shift to the divine perspective and see the whole play, see the Leela, then you can say, oh, this is helping me to process that thing that I'm afraid of, that I'm holding on to, that I don't want to let go of. And then you begin to appreciate the thing, right? So I've lost count. The second or the third lesson that I had to learn was to appreciate that it is happening for my development, for my best good. Even if that is a very painful process. It is helping me to learn something, or more likely to let go of something negative that I have learned. So with time in this situation, I learned to recognize that everything is here for a purpose, and ultimately it is here for my highest purpose. And by embracing that, the faster you learn what you have to learn in a certain class, the faster you can graduate and move on from it. The other thing I had to learn, because I moved on from this situation, this organization, and it still existed. And I hated that it existed. But again, that was just me carrying forward resentment. So I had to, again, shift my consciousness from the human who was broken and hurt by it and go back to divine perspective and recognize, almost like the principal of a school, I have to look at each class and say, well, okay, from the human perspective, oh, I have graduated from the 5th grade and I hate the 5th grade and it should disappear because I no longer need it. As the principal of that school, I can look back now and I can say the 5th grade is there for the people who need the 5th grade. This being has moved on to the 6th grade. Good for them, but there's nothing wrong with the 5th grade. It's there for people who need to learn that. And I had to accept what I considered to be a wicked system persisting in the world. And I had to understand from the perspective of the educator with a capital E, that if that form of education was no longer needed, it would cease to be, but it is still needed. So I know all of these things sound very evasive or very emotionally avoidant or perhaps even condescending, but I'm really just summarizing a very long, very honest journey of healing myself, right? Let me see if I can make it quick. So I accept that it exists. I recognize that it exists for my own good. I recognize that it has a right to continue to exist in this world. I appreciate what it did for me. I begin to see the experience in a form of gratitude. Thank goodness I went through that. Otherwise, I would not have been able to learn this. I would not have been able to let go of that. I would not have been exposed to this new thing. I also recognize that there is no version of life that is not for my best good. Everything in life works out really, really well. When I experienced that devastation, the version of life that I thought that I wanted, I lost. And I ended up being propelled into another version of life. But it turns out that that was an awesome experience. I met the best people in the world. I learned the best things. My mind was completely reshaped. My spirit was completely liberated. If I could go back to before this incident occurred, I would not stop it from occurring. Even though it broke me completely, I would not stop it from occurring. So that was part of the journey also. But very, very specifically, the teaching here is not only do you have to accept and forgive and be grateful for, but specifically you have to love the situation. So loving means that you have to shift to the consciousness of God. Let me not say that because people may not be comfortable with that. Let's say shift to the unity consciousness, which is a vibration of the nature of love. When you shift to that consciousness, you can affect change. Now, this process took me 6 or 7 years. I eventually loved the situation, the people, the organization, the decision, everything. And what you would call miraculously, the whole situation changed. And everything was reversed, and everything that I thought I lost, I was given back extra to compensate for the fact that I lost it for all those years. So I would say that at the end of the story, there was a miraculous undoing of the situation. I took 6 or 7 years to get that done. If I had understood this process, I could have done what I was instructed in prayer on the first day. Bring the situation into love immediately. And immediately, if you are able to, the situation will change itself. I don't mean that it will simply change your perspective on it. Obviously, you have to change your perspective in order to bring it into love, right? So when you accept it and you release it and you surrender to it and you forgive it and you become grateful for it, then you're able to bring it into love. But an experienced person can do this within moments, minutes, days, perhaps. It took me at the time 7 years. For those of you who have been following, you're familiar with my diagram. So I just want to explain the concept that we are all individuals, but we are all connected to Source. And Source is connected to everything else. And the nature of Source is love. What Source is. The light, everybody can understand that we are all light. We are all energy. Okay, what if that energy is something called love? Okay, so you can say that Source is love, and everything that Source has created is also love. If the human can shift from the human consciousness in the process of prayer or manifesting and become Source and allow the consciousness of love to persist, when you embody love, you are not praying to God, you are praying as God. And when you pray as God, you no longer exist. Your consciousness is not currently here. Your consciousness is here. And from here, you can move to anywhere, right? This is the magic that we're all trying to do with manifesting. This is the source of that magic. The fact that love is the changing room. If you remember the movie The Matrix, love is that white space that they refer to as the loading bay. And when you get into the loading bay, you can load any reality that you want, anything that you want to create. So my long lesson and my long story was that I had to learn all these different things about the situation. I had to surrender, I had to accept, I had to say, if this is how it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And then I eventually stumbled into a state of love for this situation, and I eventually was able to miraculously turn it around. But if we can understand that process and apply it to everything in our lives consciously, at will, I make it sound easy, but maybe one day it becomes easy. Maybe after a lot of practice it becomes easy. Then couldn't we, in theory, change any situation in the whole world, more or less immediately, into a more beautiful experience because we are able to allow the consciousness of love? Because that's really what it boils down to, right? We can exist in that consciousness of love if we wanted to, but anger, resentment, pain, fear, and all of the things that come with duality perception, duality thinking, is what is stopping us from being able to do it. So we go through these long processes of getting rid of and healing the anger and fear and separation and resentment in order to allow this thing inside of us that's trying to shine, called love, to shine forward. So we take off all these layers, and then finally love is allowed to exist, and love can fix the situation. But as we become masters in this, as we become more disciplined in it, we can recognize much more quickly, here's what I have to do. I have to accept. I have to be grateful. I have to recognize the lesson. I have to recognize how this is helping me grow. I have to surrender to all the options that come out of this. And as you peel off those layers, boom, 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 in a session of meditation, a session of prayer and fasting, whatever you do in an intense process, within days or minutes perhaps, you can allow your love being to shine forward and to take control of what is happening, and then to transmute what is happening into something more enjoyable. Okay, so I feel like maybe that was a little bit rambly. That was inspired by a comment on one of my videos. I don't remember who it was, but thank you for inspiring this video. I really hope that you guys enjoy this. Let me know if it was a little bit too weird. I am in the process of answering a few questions from some of my videos, and then I have some stuff coming up. I promise I'm going to do a series on anxiety. I'm going to do a series on the mind, how it builds trauma, how it builds pain bodies, using Eckhart Tolle's concept of pain bodies. Because I think that we can talk about the divine consciousness, but we also have to understand what the opposite of that is and how it works. And then I'm continuing to release a series of meditation videos, and I'm also working on a series about sleep and energy, because a lot of people, part of the awakening process is depression, and part of depression is sleep. So look forward to all of that. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your ideas and your comments. Have a wonderful day, everyone.